When you are looking to assemble a staff of the best football minds in America, there's only one place that you go to, and that's Baylor University, apparently. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Tuesday to you. Bears have a big basketball game tonight, but the big news out of yesterday, kind of out of nowhere, shock number one, and then soon thereafter, shock number two. University of Alabama, you might have heard of them, football team. They have one. They're usually pretty good. They had to move on from a legend. Nick Saban retired this year. They go and they get the coach of the national runner-up, University of Washington, and Kalen DeBoer. Good hire, I thought. Wouldn't have been the first choice, but a good hire. And he needs to fill out a staff. So he does what any good, smart coach would do, and that is look to Baylor. Do any of you know Miami University? Not the University of Miami, Miami University in Ohio. Ben Roethlisberger went there. It was also produced a lot of great coaches. I believe Fielding Hurry Up Yost started there. Bo Schembechler started there, not Fielding Yost. Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes, the 10-year war, Ohio State, Michigan, they started at Miami. And I bring that up to say that Miami got the nickname the Cradle of Coaches. Look no further than Waco, Texas for your new cradle of coaches, I guess, because Alabama, the number one college football program of the last 15 years, poached two Baylor coaches in the same day, Chris Kapilovic and Christian Robinson. Not a good day to be named Chris in Waco if you don't want to go to Alabama. The first one was surprising in Kapilovic because he was hired in December and he got his Baylor gear. He met with his team. He, got the family some Baylor sweatshirts for Christmas. And now they're getting outfitted in some Bear Bryant Argyle or, the maroon of Alabama. Where did this come from, man? And I hate to be that guy who, trashes a guy and his abilities as soon as he walks out the door. But I'm not going to be that guy because, to be honest with you, I didn't know much about Chris Kapilovic to begin with. I don't know. I don't think he was going to be the savior of this offensive line, but who knows? I tried to keep it down low when we did the segment after he was hired. He's never had like a dominant offense that he's been a part of, really, as the offensive line coach, but he's done it for a long time. And he goes off to Alabama. And look, I get it. It's Alabama, right? I know it's not Saban, but it's Alabama. And another thing that interests me in this is the security of it all. Chris Kapilovic came from Michigan State, where it was a miserable season last year, a dumpster fire. Mel Tucker gets fired through controversy at the end of the first month of the season, and Kapilovic and the rest of his guys have to stick it out as it all kind of crumbles around them. Well, he comes to Baylor because that's probably the best option he had coming off that season. But we have to remember, even with the positive momentum that's going Baylor's way, like Dave Aranda could get fired around the same time next year as Mel Tucker did in 2023. So, yeah, it's Alabama, but it's also a chance to work under a coach who was just hired at a major program, the major program in college football. Probably doesn't have to worry about going through a season like he went through in 2023 at Michigan State. Probably is not going to have to deal with that this year at Alabama, but who knows, right? I guess crazy things have happened. What's funny is, I'm not kidding, I saw him a week ago, as you're listening to this. It was last Tuesday at the Brazos Landing in Waco. We were doing a remote show there for the Matt Mosley Show, ESPN Central Texas, weekdays 3 to 6, and at centexsportsfan.com. And he's there, he's yucking it up with the guys. He takes the linemen out for dinner. He's praying with them. And lo and behold, here he is a week later, not coaching them anymore. It's business, man. I don't think it's anything personal. It stinks as a Baylor fan to have to look for an offensive line coach in what is almost March here. But when you get the chance to go to Alabama, you go to Alabama. And I'm pretty sure Chris Kapilovic said that to Baylor linebackers coach Christian Robinson, because just hours later on Monday, they get the announcement that Christian Robinson is also joining Kalen DeBoer's staff at Alabama. Now, this is also odd because now it's coaches who, from what I can tell, don't really have a tie to DeBoer. They didn't coach at Indiana or Washington, obviously, or whatever that powerhouse was for him in D3. They weren't like part of these staffs, but these are the guys that DeBoer handpicked. And it's one guy from each side of the ball, and guys who don't really have history with each other. It's not like, Kapilovic's in, and I got this guy who I've worked with for a while for linebackers. He can come with us too. No, it's just that this is what Kalen DeBoer has circled. Christian Robinson is an SEC guy. He was in the SEC pretty much, I think, exclusively until he got to Baylor last year and played at Georgia. So there's a lot of SEC history there. But it is odd from a guy from each side of the ball. It sounds like Kalen DeBoer was just like, you know what? I like the look of this Baylor staff. Why don't we go take a look there? So now a tough situation for Baylor to be in, because DeBoer is hired late. He's finalizing a staff late, and it looks like these were the final two moves. And now Baylor's got to look for two position coaches. Offensive line, maybe you move Jarrett Anderson there. He coached the offensive line at times at TCU under Gary Patterson. He coached an All-American, Avila, at TCU on the offensive line. So maybe that's where you go on for that position on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, you could go for a guy who didn't coach under Gary Patterson, but who is Gary Patterson. Strategic consultant, Gary. You notice in this contract here, we said other duties as assigned. Why don't you come and coach our linebackers too? Crazier things have happened. You have one of the best active defensive minds in all of college football already on your staff. Does that mean that Gary Patterson focuses on linebackers too? Does it mean Matt Powledge focuses on linebackers? Still the defensive coordinator, but not the defensive play caller. We'll see. But wow, what a day. If I had told you a month ago or a month and a half ago before Nick Saban resigns, how about that? Or before he retires. Hey, this great staff that Dave Aranda has built, two of those guys are going to flip to Alabama before spring ball because that's how much they're wanted. You would have been like, what are you talking about? Clearly, for whatever his faults may be, Dave knows how to pick coaches because Alabama wants them too. That's like my 2014 Toyota Camry. Say what you want about it. I think it's a great car. People are committing violent crimes to get that car. They robbed me in my own driveway to get that car. That's what it's like for Baylor assistant coaches. Alabama just robbed us in our driveway. That's how much they want it. They're 2014 Toyota Camrys or something like that.